Welcome back to Finger Lakes. Today it is time for sports brought to you by Cicino's Pizzeria, and for that I'm going to kick it over to Nate Sharman because you and Jim Sinacropi here were in western part of the Finger Lakes, we'll call it,
right,
last night for some high school basketball action. What was it?
Yeah, before we get to that, the awesome girls doubleheader that we had last night in B1, let's talk a little bit about boys. Last night, Wayne over in A2, they were defeated by East High by a score of 51-41. So the Wayne Eagles season ends at 17-5. Great year for Wayne, their young team, so they're kind of building up. So it was a good season for the Eagles.
I think that Wayne is a team to watch next year.
Yes, for sure.
Blankenberg's going to be a year older.
Yep.
I predict he's going to be the player of the year over his. I think he'll be a sophomore next year. Is that right?
I think he's a sophomore now.
Is he?
Believe.
So his junior, senior year.
Cam's a freshman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so bright future for
sure.
Bill Thompson's bunch there.
Yep. And then over at HAC and D1, they lost to Voca Prattsburg. Voca Prattsburg is just having a really powerhouse year. So HAC, the Wolves, end at 11-11 on the season. And the Victor Blue Devils won last night. They're headed to the finals. They are going to take on Fairport in the final at Blue Cross Arena on Saturday night.
And that'll be a big one. Packed house.
Oh, that'll be a really good game.
Double A is a different level.
Right. I know Fairport's the 6th seed too, so they've went through some upsets to get to the finals. Victor, the 1 seed in Double A, have gone there. So that's all for boys that were last night. Tonight we got a really good boys game in B1. Myself and Paul Russo will be headed up to Bloomfield this evening for a 7:45 start between Waterloo and Newark to decide who's going to head to the finals there. That's going to be a really fun game. Really looking forward to that. Didn't expect Waterloo to be here. You know, they played really well against Pal-Mac and were able to get that victory in the semifinal. Newark just continuing to kind of chug along, especially in the second half of the season. And that should be a really good, I predict a low-scoring affair. That's what we've seen lately, and I don't predict it to be any different for this game tonight.
That game is definitely the game of the night. Those two have really become pretty intense rivals over the past
they don't like each other, that's for sure.
5 years, as is the case with a lot of the Finger Lakes East teams. Waterloo's become pretty good rivals with Geneva recently, and as Minders was with Newark, it kind of rotates, and it all comes down to these sectional semifinal games. Waterloo and Newark met 2 or 3 years ago. The year that Waterloo lost to Geneva in the finals at the Blue Cross, and they had a really tight game in the semifinals, and so I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, I said 70-45 start, but that is the second half of a doubleheader. First game begins at 6 on the other side of the bracket, so that could alter the time depending on when that game finishes, but tentatively 7:45. Stay tuned to fingerlakes1.com, and Finger Lakes 1 Radio will kind of update people as we see fit there. If the game goes late, we'll kind of make sure we have
could
everyone.
Could be 7:45, could be 8:15, could be 8 o'clock, could be 7:50.
That's what we weren't sure about last night with that second game, but it started at 7:46, so they were pretty good.
Yeah. And they really did turn that around.
Yeah, when Tim Lincoln's there, head of girls basketball in the state, he does a very really good job of keeping everything on track. Really good job by Mr. Lincoln and his staff for really turning that game over quickly and getting the next one started.
And if you want to check out a great interview with Tim Lincoln between games of our broadcast, you can re-listen to the broadcast. If you go to our nightly recap from last night, there's a link there that says re-listen to the broadcast. And if you want to hear that interview with Tim Lincoln, it's between games, so about halfway. And also great post-game interviews after both games too.
Yeah, we did. We had fun. Yeah, that was really fun. We had Molly Seether, Taryn Goodness on the first game from Pal-Mac. Then the second game, Jazzy Lewis and Natalie DeSanto after the game. So yeah.
How well have teams been traveling to the games that we've covered so far?
Packed house last night. It was awesome.
really packed
traveling
house.
Well. Yeah.
It was. There's nothing like it. When you get to deep into sectionals and you get these double headers so there's 4 schools represented between games. Obviously, fans shuffling out, new fans shuffling in, and it really is quite a scene. And it was boisterous atmosphere all night for both games.
Yeah, done a nice job too getting students there, making sure that students are represented, and they're nice, loud, and proud too. So that's awesome to see. That was really fun last night. Yeah, so coming out victorious in that first game, Pal-Mac takes down Livonia 42-40. That was a really close game, down to the buzzer too. Travel call with 0.9 seconds left as Livonia was looking to tie it up, but travel called, so Pal-Mac was able to seal the victory. They're headed to the finals. a really fun and electric game too for that first game of that doubleheader, Jim.
Yeah, and that travel call, you weren't sure if they were going to call a foul or
Right.
travel. It could have been Buckley going to the line to shoot a couple free throws to tie it, but they called the travel, which effectively ended the game because with 0.9 seconds left, Pal-Mac was able to use a timeout because Coach Dan Harris smartly saved one, and then you advance the ball. And so at that point, you basically just got to inbound it. If they had to inbound, if it was boys, Pal-Mac would have had to inbound underneath their own basket,
Right.
or underneath Livonia's basket, and then Livonia still has a chance. So it's just interesting how a rules difference between the boys and the girls,
Right.
Effectively ended that game with 0.9 seconds left.
Right. And then that gets us to our nightcap. Waterloo takes down Mid Lakes by a score of 85-43. So big win for the Tigers to move on. Really started off hot by Mid Lakes. Waterloo came in really good, 20-1 on the season before last night. But Mid Lakes had the first between 5 and 6 points in that game. But then after that, it was all
5-0
Tigers.
run to start the game for Mid Lakes.
Yep.
And that was it.
It was 5-0 Stella Del Papa. Her first 5 points of the game came there, and then Waterloo went on a pretty good run down that first quarter and didn't really look back.
Yeah.
No, they definitely did not look back.
Yep.
It was over at halftime pretty much. Although, we talked about when a team is down 18, 20 points, you got to turn it into a series of smaller games. So you try to, at the end of the third quarter, maybe only be down 12, win that third quarter by 6 or 8 points. But Waterloo was just too much.
Right.
They just continued to widen the margin.
Yep.
And now that sets up a rematch against the one team that beat Waterloo this season.
Yep. Friday night at Rush Henrietta. That'll be a really fun game. 7:30 tip there. Paul and myself will be at that game on Friday night from Rush Henrietta. So really looking forward to that one. Just talking to some of the girl, Natalie DeSanto and Jazzy Lewis after the game, you can tell that you have that little rivalry with Pal-Mac, right? That's the team that took you down, so you want to in turn take them down. So that'll be a really fun game to watch on Friday.
Well,
I was going to say that
line.
could be maybe one of the best games of the year.
I think so. I think it has the billing for it, right? Yeah, for sure.
Well, I see two outcomes potentially. One, Waterloo just runs away with it, as they've been known to do, or Pal-Mac makes it a close game,
Right.
in which Pal-Mac would be able to sneak it out at the end. It's tough. Waterloo's a favorite, right? Even though they lost to Pal-Mac, you'd say. But the one thing Pal-Mac has going for them, and you saw it in that Livonia game last night, was Livonia brought a lot of full court pressure. Won't be the same intensity that Waterloo will bring, but Pal-Mac was able to take care of the ball, where Livonia in the first half was committing a lot of turnovers against Pal-Mac's pressure. And so if there's one thing that Dan Harris's group does well, I think in most cases, is take care of the ball.
Right.
Taryn Goodness, outstanding. Molly Seether and Georgia Worth, good with the ball. So we'll see. We'll see if they don't turn the ball over, it'll be a close game. If they are a little loose with it, it could be a repeat of what we saw last night.
Yep. So a lot of basketball being had on FingerLakes1.com. So one more semifinal game tonight. Paul Russo and I at Bloomfield for Waterloo Newark boys B1 semifinal, and then we'll be Friday night. We'll be doing the Waterloo Pal-Mac game from Rush Henrietta. That's the finals. So we'll have more games after that too on FingerLakes1.com, but we'll make sure to update those as they
So
become
what are
available.
the possibilities for the Blue Cross Arena on Saturday? We know we're going to have a Finger Lakes East team, the winner of the Waterloo Newark game at 9 a.m. But any Lions boys
That's Friday night though, right, Paul?
in the Blue Cross?
In the Blue Cross,
Yeah.
correct? Yep.
Okay,
And then Victor plays that Saturday night.
right. Which we probably wouldn't cover that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be the late game. That'll
Yep, 9 p.m.
Yeah. So it's a long stretch of game. If you want to watch a lot of live basketball, get your plan set to go to the Blue Cross Arena
Right.
or Rush Henrietta. But you're talking about a full Friday night and then a full day 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. At the Blue Cross on Saturday.
A lot of people working hard in those two gymnasiums to make that
No doubt
work.
about that.
So really, really kudos to all the volunteers and people that put so much work and time and effort in.
It is quite I don't know if I call it a spectacle, but it is quite an endeavor to pull it off every year.
For sure.
There's just, I mean, how many classifications are you talking about here? With
9 on the boys'
championship
side.
games, yeah.
9 on the boys' side and a little bit less. I think it's 7 on the girls' side.
7 on the girls. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of tournaments.
Yep.
A lot of tournaments, a lot of games, a lot
of people put a lot of time in. A lot of people have a lot of time and passion. Though, like talking to Tim Lincoln before they're in between games, there just absolutely loves it. Wouldn't rather be anywhere else. So it's pretty awesome.
And they need the cooperation of so many different athletic directors because all these semifinal games are at a neutral site. So you need to find a high school that will be willing to host that is equidistant to the teams participating.
Right.
So that narrows it down a little bit. And then you need athletic directors to be able to be willing to host all these people. And around that, they need to coordinate their practice schedules. So like last night we showed up at Canandaigua. The Canandaigua girls are still alive. They were practicing in that gym.
Right.
And then spring sports start to ramp up here for teams that would, the Far West Regional games, for example. By the time next week's Far West Regional games are underway, spring sport practices are starting, and a lot of those this time of year are inside the gymnasium. Right. So it really is harder than most people think.
For sure.
To coordinate.
Scheduling nightmare.